But Brandon, it's time to move on into our third topic, and we're kind of sticking on the little bit of the injury train here when it comes to the NFL. A lot of injuries going on. Marcus Mariota went down. You got Dalvin Cook, who we talked about, went down. Julio Jones went down. However, it looks like he's going to be back this next week. And the one we're talking about in this segment is Derek Carr. And the reason why we're talking about it, he goes down in this last game against Denver. But the big thing is how many weeks he could miss. And they're saying it's a back fracture. I believe they're saying a transverse process fracture in his back. And he's going to be out 2 to 6 weeks. So that means that the Raiders, looking at their schedule, will miss Derek Carr for the Baltimore game, for the Los Angeles Charger game, could get him back week 7, Thursday night, against KC at the earliest. And the question I got for you, Brandon, is how does this injury affect the Raiders overall?
Well, right now you're obviously losing a quarterback who was one of the best quarterbacks, I think, in the NFL right now. Mm-hmm. So you lose him for at least 2 weeks.
Except the last 2 games are kind of for the Raiders, only 10 points each.
Yeah, no, they weren't good, but we've seen really good quarterbacks have offenses and have games where it
went against 2 great defenses though on the road.
He did, and I mean just turnovers were really hurting you. But I think that for this, so here's the thing that could happen. Your best case scenario is, he misses in the Baltimore game and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers, who are 0-4, they're going to be playing the 0-4. Oh hell,
New York Giants.
New York Giants
could get a win
week.
this week.
I couldn't even think about.
Could get a win.
And then you play Baltimore and the Chargers, and it's for sure. It sounds like for sure he'll miss both of those weeks.
Yep.
And then it would be in 17 days, he'd return on Thursday night to host the Kansas City Chiefs. Worst case scenario, he'd miss 5 to 6 games and return somewhere after the Raiders' November 12th bye.
So what he would do is what I'm looking at right now. For sure, he's missing Baltimore and Chargers. At the worst, he's coming back New England week 11.
Yeah.
In Mexico City.
In Mexico City. So the games that he would miss would be Baltimore, Chargers, Chiefs at home, then on the road at Buffalo, on the road at Miami, then the bye week. Baltimore, an interesting team. They didn't look too good against the Steelers. Really couldn't get anything going, and certainly could not stop Le'Veon Bell on the ground.
Didn't look good in London against the Jaguars.
No.
But Blake Bortles looked like an MVP out there with 4 touchdowns.
No, they sure did not look good there. I don't think they're going to be visiting London again anytime soon. The Chargers have looked up and down. They really have not been terrible, but for the longest time now, for the last couple of seasons, it's like the Chargers, they'll lose all these games, but it's like by a combined 8 points. I mean, they always just get so unlucky at the end in these games. The Chiefs, even at home, that's a tough one. At Buffalo, surprising 3-1 team. And then at Miami, they won in the first week they played, correct? And then they've lost since then.
Well, technically second week because they had the bye week 1 because of the hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
So they played week 2, got the win, and then they've lost.
And their week 1.
Yeah, their week 1. And, I mean, when I look at, let's say, hypothetically, he misses 6 weeks. For sure, I think in the next 2, I could see the Raiders splitting the next 2. I could see them with E.J. Manuel either losing to Baltimore and winning against the Chargers, or losing to the Chargers and winning against Baltimore. Baltimore, to me, is kind of a toss-up because you play the Browns and the Bengals and you look good and you get wins. The Bengals, you made them look like trash. And then you play Jacksonville, get blown out. You don't look good against the Steelers. Part of me is wondering, well, are you a good team? Or was it you were just feasting off of the Bengals and the Browns, who are the 2 bottom feeders in your division? That's why I'm still unsure about the Baltimore Ravens. The Chargers, though, why I'm kind of leaning towards the Baltimore game being a win and the Charger game being a loss is the Chargers, the thing that was pathetic about this last week is, did you hear when they were coming out of the tunnel, how they were getting booed in their home stadium? They were getting booed in Carson. That is so sad. That is so pathetic. It's just like you're getting booed by your home team. Like Phillip Rivers said in that game this past week, we didn't have to go to the silent count, but it wasn't very easy to call the audibles and stuff and do your verbal calls on the line. That's terrible when you're playing in your home, it's supposed to be your home stadium. So, I mean, the Chargers, though, they lose games closely. Because of that, I could see them getting the win. Without Derek Carr, the Chiefs win easily. I think Buffalo wins easily. Basically, if he misses 6 weeks, Brandon, they beat maybe the Ravens or the Chargers. Pick which one you want to win, and then you beat the Dolphins. You win 2 games. You go 2-3 in these next 5 games if Derek Carr misses the next 6. However,
which puts you then at 4-5 on the season.
Put you 4-5. However, now that Derek Carr's not out there, are you going to finally lean on beast mode? We talked about him last week. We talked about how they're kind of misusing beast mode. Do they finally lean on him now that Derek Carr's not out there? Do they lean on beast mode and finally say, fuck it, we're going to use you more than 13 carries per game?
I think you almost have to. I think you almost have to lean on him a little bit more because
he only had 12 yards this last week on 9 carries.
9 carries, 12 yards. Denver's defensive front is stout, and there's been, I mean, we saw what Ezekiel Elliott was able to do against them. Absolutely nothing. Terrible game for him. Terrible game for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But I think that EJ Manuel isn't terrible. 6-11 as a starter, 29 NFL games. He last won in 2014. He looked fine. He looked fine in coming in replacing Carr. That last ball, though, he threw it up. He had his man, but he overthrew him to where the deep guy on the coverage was able to basically just go back a couple of steps and boom, he was right there. I don't think that he looked terrible, though. I don't think that he looked terrible, but I do think that this is now the time where you need to lean on beast mode a little bit more. You have to. You have to start giving him, 15 to 20, 23 carries a game and doing that just to at least keep defenses honest, that you're not going to throw on every single play. Also, you take a look, Amari Cooper, I think, already has 6 or 7 drops on the season. So Cooper really hasn't been helping you out much. Crabtree was out for this past week.
They're hoping he'll be back, though, this week from his lung bruise injury that kept him out against Denver. I
mean, you hope for that, but then you have to try and get in a new rhythm with a new quarterback. Those things aren't easy.
No, it's not.
Those things aren't easy. So looking at the schedule and going, that could be a win. They could be. These are going to be tough games. You look at what Pittsburgh just did to Baltimore, and you look at what Jacksonville did to Baltimore, and that was in London. So maybe you give Baltimore not a pass, but a little bit of, okay, you had to go to London, all this stuff, but you both teams had to travel there.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be easy.
But aren't the Jaguars London's team? The London Jaguars?
But I think that when it comes down to it, EJ Manuel has really not had to play much in a game, and he hasn't started since 2014. It's 2017. This is a little bit of a new territory for him, 3 years removed. It's going to be really interesting going forward with Oakland, and right now it's Kansas City and Denver. And people, I think, are starting to kind of count Oakland out. But they may not be if they're able to do enough in Derek Carr's absence.
Well, and the way I'm looking at it is, I'll be completely honest. If if I'm an Oakland fan, I am hoping for only 2 weeks. For only 2 weeks. You need Derek Carr in that Chief game. You need Derek Carr in that Buffalo game, because Buffalo was able to, yet again, we're using the transitive property here on the podcast. Can't remember if I did this on the prime time or the onside kick so far this week, but Denver beat you, Buffalo beat Denver, so by the transitive property, Buffalo should be able to beat you. And they need Derek Carr for that game. They need everything in their arsenal to try to beat Buffalo in Buffalo. And I mean, Miami right now, I basically picked the Raiders without Carr only because of how bad the Miami Dolphins have looked in their past 2 games after winning their first game in week 2. But let's say he misses the 6 weeks, luckily that 6th week is a bye, but like you said, that puts you then at 4-5 on the year, and then that means Derek Carr is coming back to me, a not so easy rest of the schedule after the bye. I want to say New England's still a tough game only because Tom Brady's still their quarterback. No matter how bad statistically the Patriot defense is.
And they have been bad.
Tom Brady proved 2 weeks ago that if I want to will this team to a victory kicking and screaming, I will do that. Thank you, Houston, for the win. I will walk out of here with my W. Thank you very much. Denver has already proved to beat you with Derek Carr. So that'd be 2 weeks, off the injury. The Giants are a joke. You get the win there. I don't care who you have at quarterback. You'll get the win. The Chiefs, that'll be a tough game. The Cowboys haven't looked as good as they have been last year.
Giants, that was your Super Bowl pick this year, right?
Why do you think they're doing so bad, Brandon? A little kiss of death going for you. Dave doesn't, he's not a true believer in the kiss of death. That's why I'm hoping for an 0-16 for the Giants to make him a really big true believer. But the Giants, not as good as they were last year, but that'll be a tough game. The Eagles have looked good. That's on the road in Philadelphia. And then you get the Chargers again. So, unless Derek Carr is on his A game, what we had seen in week 1, week 2, there's a possibility at the worst, this Raider team only wins 2 games after the bye because of how tough their schedule is.
And I don't even think that we could, necessarily, grant them an easy win against the
Chargers,
the Chargers, nope. or Baltimore.
Okay, I thought you were going to say or the Giants. I was like, nah, I think I can give them an easy win over the Giants, Brandon.
Yeah. So, but you obviously just don't want to lose. You don't want to have Derek Carr be out for that long, and. If it comes down to he's out for Baltimore, the Chargers, the Chiefs, Buffalo, Miami, the bye, and then New England, that's not very good. That's not very good. So I think that you obviously want him to come back as quickly as possible, but you've got to play and be competitive at least while he's out. EJ Manuel, again, he showed that he can do some things. And I think now having kind of a full week of practice as the starter, I think is going to be really helpful too, to hopefully get on the same page as Michael Crabtree and then as Amari Cooper. But I do also believe that it's time to use Lynch a little bit more. And maybe
I was just going to say that.
And maybe it's not just using Lynch, but using your other speedy running backs. The Raiders in the last couple of games have certainly gone away from them, which is unfortunate because they haven't been in the game, really. I mean, look at the game that they played against Washington. When were you really going to be able to use the running game against Washington? Or at least, I mean, you're not even able to establish it right now because there's nothing to get going. There's nothing to get going. You almost have to go through the air, especially in the game against Washington. You were down.
And that's why I wonder do you think teams now, especially with Derek Carr, in the games Derek Carr is out, do you think that teams, especially let's say Crabtree misses his next game, even though they're saying they hope he returns back from his lung bruise injury, if let's say Crabtree and Carr are out, what is it that doesn't make the Ravens go, screw it, we're going to load the box and make it hard for you to run. We'll let EJ beat us. We'll let EJ Manuel beat us. We're not going to let Marshawn Lynch beat us. And teams try to take him out of the game and remove him completely so that EJ Manuel has to step up and beat them. I'm not saying that EJ's a joke and can't do it, but who's it to say that a defense doesn't do that and say, you know what, we will take Marshawn out and we will kind of hedge our bets and try to make EJ beat us.
Yeah, I mean, they very well may be doing that. They very well may be doing that. I know that, looking at and reading an article, NFL Network reported that there's hope Carr's back after 1 week so that he would only miss the game against the Baltimore Ravens. And, the less time he misses, the better. But here's the problem, though. It didn't sound like he was going to be back after 1 week because the timetable was 2 to 6. 2 to 6. And they badly need Derek Carr to be out there. They badly need Derek Carr to be out there because we saw how they played when Derek Carr wasn't out there at the end of last year.
We saw him in the playoffs.
Yes, it wasn't
Derek
good.
Carr.
It wasn't good.
And what's funny is, who picked I believe he picked the Raiders in the Super Bowl this year was Mark Weber. I think he put the Raiders in his Super Bowl this year. I think maybe not. I think he did because he said they'll win the Super Bowl and then walk into Vegas. But I mean, the thing is that I'm looking here from Jack Del Rio, and even he said could be as short as 2 weeks. It could be longer. No one's expecting him to be back. And Del Rio went on to say, he said he's sorry. Great kid. He'll bounce back. I told him that the team will take care of business while he's healing and just get healed up. And when he comes back, he'll come back. End quote. And I mean, that's really all you could do if you're the Raiders. Next man up. Derek's not playing for the next 2. We can either, if I'm Jack Del Rio, I'm saying we can either sit here and kind of, what's the phrase? Not sulk in our sorrows, but
you don't want to feel sorry for yourself.
You don't want to be sorry for yourself.
You can't feel sorry for yourself.
You want to go out there, play the best of your ability, and who knows? Maybe the Raiders go out there, they play really well, they get 2 wins, and they win the 2 games that Derek Carr is out. However, the one thing I'm thinking of, and I'm going to say it for a third time, could you lean on Marshawn Lynch a little more now? Could you put the ball in his freaking hands, man? Because maybe it bugs me to see a running back as good as beast mode only get the ball 6 times. Only get the ball 6 times.
Well, again, I think the thing that doesn't make a whole lot of sense is the fact that you go and you trade for him. Mm-hmm. You trade for him. He comes out of retirement, and you trade for him. You think that, okay, they're going to use him. Mm-hmm. They're going to absolutely use him, and they've certainly not used him through the last couple of games. I think he's only touched the ball 15 times.
Plus, EJ Manuel's a guy where he's got legs. He can use his legs to where I'm not saying rush the ball, get 40, 50 yards on the ground. I'm saying at least just roll out and kind of do some things in the play action. If you get the run game going, Marshawn, then you can play action it, bootleg it out with EJ Manuel, and then he can either throw it on the run or use his legs to get some extra yardage. I'm not saying that's his big bread and butter, but he's not a quarterback that can't use his legs. So, I mean, that's where the run can become beneficial to the Raiders. But before we go on and make our picks, any final thoughts that you want Raider Nation or anyone watching or listening to know about the Derek Carr injury in this whole situation?
It's going to be some interesting time right now for the Raiders because, again, it's been a while. I mean, outside of the little time last year where Derek Carr missed at the end of the season, it's going to be interesting to see how the Raiders do without him because it's been a while since the Raiders have had a different quarterback, and it's going to be interesting to see how the wide receivers are able to get on the same page as EJ Manuel. It's going to be interesting to see how they use the running back, Marshawn Lynch, and how they go with the running game there. Then they have Richard in Washington. It's going to be interesting to see if they change the game plan or if they keep it with, okay, we're going to continue to be a passing team. And EJ Manuel, he's just going to have to step up.
And big news right now, I know this is going to be later this week that this segment comes out on YouTube, but we're recording this on Monday. True transparency here. You want to know what Jay Gruden told Lisa Salters during the Monday night game? Josh Norman may miss at least a couple weeks after a rib injury he got making a tackle in the second quarter.
Interesting.
So moving forward, maybe next week on the Primetime Podcast, moving forward, Washington's defense just took a big hit, especially in that secondary. But this is where I want you guys to chime in. Let us know what you think down below. Do the Raiders survive this? Let's say Derek Carr, panic situation, he's out for 6 weeks. Does he survive it? And what's the record for the Raiders moving forward? Let's say he only misses 2 weeks. What do they do in the next 2? Let us know. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section.